Beta in Equestria, Chapter 1, The Escape. Pad, pad, drip. Pad, pad, drip. The blood splashed crimson on the leaves and underbrush as he moved silently along, his ragged breathing the only sound to betray his stealth. The majority of his wounds ceased bleeding, caked with dried blood, save his midsection, the worst, still bleeding. Pain racked his body from a dozen wounds. Fatigue was threatening to bring him low. He knew he couldn't stop. He knew that to stop and rest would certainly bathe him in the numbing, peaceful blanket of sleep, and probably death, that great equalizer of men and kings. His muscles screamed at him. They were well past his limit, begging for respite, only obeying his demands to move, because to stop would mean certain death. I can't stop, he thought, to keep his mind clear. I must run. I wonder which part of me feels that. His mind wandered a little, taking his concentration from the pain. An odd wry smile formed on his strange maw, too long to be a rabbit's, but too short to be a fox's either, showing one of his sharp canines. Is it my human common sense, logic, and rationality? He began to wax philosophically. I am being hunted after all, I think. Or is it my vulpine instincts? So used to the chase, the hunt. But so is my other side. I was made, genes up, as prey, but also as a hunter. I'm always going to feel like I'm being chased, hunted, and in danger. But in this time I know it's real. At that moment, his gut wound stung, reassuring him that he was, in fact, in danger and hunted. His ears picked up a noise, a distinct, unnatural sound. He heard a rustling in the brushes that wasn't him. He stopped cold. His long blue ear shot straight up, listening for the slightest sound of a butterfly's wings. Then he heard it. Breathing, he realized. Labored breathing of a healthy man who is simply winded, not wounded. A hunter. Damn, he thought. I didn't think there were any this far out from the lab, yet silently inhaling, deep, smelling the hunter. New. He smells new. A feral grin formed on his stubbed vulpine muzzle. He must be a hired mercenary, not one of the usual hunters the lab uses. They must be desperate. I wonder what cover story they told him, he pondered. These thugs for hire never told anything resembling the truth. I must be much farther out than I thought if they're sending his kind after me. I must be completely quiet. His kind are usually more trigger-happy than the trained hunters, he concluded. They tend to pray and spray into any bushes that make noise. Amateurs, he thought again, knowing that they are also less adept at spotting stealth as well. Finally, an advantage. He waited 2 heartbeats before deciding this one will become his prey. Before he can act, he heard, Base, this is ZZ Diner. I don't see any sign of this guy. How far out can some 4-eyed nerd get in this forest anyway? Can I come back now? The hunter asks into his radio. Besides, it's late. My feet hurt. I'm sure there's no way some Poindexter could have made it out to where I am. So that's the cover story, he thinks. I'm some rogue scientist. It's almost enough to laugh at. His grin widened, his fangs glistening momentarily in the cloudy moonlight. However, I'll take all the luck I can get. He'll never expect me to be able to outmaneuver him. A plan begins to form in his mind. I smell fear on him. So he's obviously not ex-military police. It means he's just some weekend warrior who shoots cans with an Uzi. Perfect. Easy prey. His vulpine side begins to assert itself. He no longer sees a hunter. He sees prey. Someone he can take down and get needed supplies from. Medical supplies, food, ammunition. With the anticipation of the hunt, his body pumped adrenaline into his system, giving him strength, speed, and pinpoint focus. The pain of the rest of the world fell away into a blurry, unrecognizable background haze. His entire universe had become this one chump's takedown. He paused another heartbeat, standing no more than 2 meters away, covered in darkness by the cloudy night. Thank the goddess for that, he thought somewhat randomly. The moon has been not only my companion, but my ally tonight, he mused. Then the radio squawked in the ear of the hunter. Okay, ZZ9er, you are clear to go home. Have a nice weekend, and please, try not to get lost this time. Last time it took us nearly a week to find you. So, he has a history of getting lost. This is too perfect. Thank the moon goddess, he reveled, preparing for the kill.
Well, yeehaw!
The hunter returns into the radio, learning all the wildlife within a 3-mile radius. Oh, great, a redneck. I love these guys. The blue one thinks sardonically.
Thank you, sir. I promise not to be a problem for you. I promise to get you some of the deer catch,
he adds. So, you're looking for a hunt, are you? Perfect, because so am I, he thinks, a very feral look crossing his face in the moonlight for just a moment before it's gone, hidden again by shadows as the moon hid behind the clouds. Tonight, you're the prey. My prey. His teeth bare at this thought. You're logged out. You have a history of getting lost. No one is going to miss you. He readied himself to strike. Don't worry, he thought, feral in his demeanor. I won't kill you much, but I need those supplies you have. He moved quickly and noiselessly. Before the prey could even realize what was going on, it was all over. The hunter's first move was to press the safety on the gun, making it useless, while his other paw unplugged the headset for the radio at the belt. Finally, he spun around behind the prey, bringing the back of his fist to the back of the prey's head, rendering him unconscious before he even knew what happened. In the space of a couple seconds, it was over. Quick, neat, clean, just as he was taught and programmed. He'd executed the same maneuver hundreds of times. He hardly even had to think about executing it before it was done. It simply happened. Then his paw gripped the hair on the back of the human's head, and he pulled viciously, presenting the unconscious man's throat. The hunter went in for the kill, the adrenaline giving his feral side control over ration for the moment, his jaws open, fangs ready to rip apart this man's esophagus and eat his flesh. But then he stopped, the human's throat half surrounded by the eager jaws. No, he said quietly after he pulled his mouth away. No, I won't kill you. I'm no animal. The human fox-rabbit hybrid said without any trace of irony on his face. I'm tired of killing, of pointless bloodshed. There's no need to kill you tonight, he finished quietly, rejecting the only way of life he'd ever known. And then his mind began to wander again, remembering his past. For what he can remember, he was created for assassin's work. He was initially turned on for a few days so they could look at his personality profile, but his father had taken a liking to him. He took him on as his pet. No, it was more than that. The scientist saw him as his son. He knew this human loved him. The others saw him as a curiosity, so they trained him, taught him, kept him alive beyond what should have been. He was technically a failure, but Father had protected him. He should have been terminated long ago. That line of thinking was pushed back into the small metal box in his mind. He didn't have time to think about that, the ramifications, any of it. He had to survive. Not only was that programmed into him, taught to him, but every piece of DNA in his body screamed for him to survive. They had done, perhaps, too good a job in creating him. Too much of his DNA was prey that knew how to run and how to survive. Shaking his head from the reverie, he moved quickly, stripping the hunter of his weapons and survival vest. The survival vest and belt of a hunter was a small drugstore in its own right. It contained medicines, food, and other supplies needed to survive for a month, if stretched right. It also contained ammunition and batteries. First things first, though. He tied up the hunter to a tree. He placed the hunting knife deep into the ground. He knew that it would be fine for a few hours. After that, the dirt would start to eat away at the blade, dulling it, weakening the metal. If somehow this hunter didn't manage to get out in a day, the knife would be useless for hunting. And two, it might not even cut the rope. Next, he dismantled the gun, leaving all the pieces and 5 bullets on the ground. He pressed the bullets point down into the soft, damp soil. If this hunter was too slow, it would be made all the worthless by Mother Gaia. The vest contained the tie wraps needed to secure the feet and wrists of the prey, which is how this blue one saw this human. His prey, his to eat, his to kill, or his to set free. He understood how foolish it was to give an opponent a chance to follow up and kill him, but he would take that chance. He wasn't like him. He would give this one a fair fighting chance that he was denied. He wasn't an animal to be ruled over by instinct. He wasn't. He was so tired of the killing. He considered denying even the parts of the gun to this imbecile, but he wasn't going to leave a man to die without a fighting chance. That's the kind of thing he would do. Besides, guns are nothing more than heavy clubs without bullets, and 5 is few enough that this hunter will have to use them sparingly, in case a bear gets hungry for human flesh. A delicacy, the local animals say. He had recalled from speaking with them in his previous walks in this forest, when he was more welcome. Back when his life still made sense. After collecting the vest and the gear he needed, he turned and looked at the helpless human, his prey, and scoffed, speaking again. His voice was deep and rumbling. His R's rumbled from the back of his animalistic throat. I'm leaving you with a better chance of survival than I was given. If you're even half as capable as a hunter, which I seriously doubt you are, you'll be free 10 minutes after you regain consciousness. As it's looking to rain, that should be no more than an hour. If you are wise, you will go home and forget you were defeated by me. No one will ever know. If you aren't any good at escaping your bonds, however... He raised his paws, palm up, and shrugged. As he walked away, disappearing into the bush. Who am I to question Mother Gaia? He added fatally. About half an hour later, he stopped to apply basic aid to his wounds. He didn't hear or see any more signs of pursuit. Regardless, he had to treat the pain and to eat. As he had hoped in the vest, there was a razor for shaving. First, he applied the antiseptic to the largest wound, inhaling sharply as not to scream, as the peroxide worked its magic, destroying the bacteria that were trying to enter the wound. Next, he shaved off the fur around the wound. After that, despite the pain of the maneuver, he leaned down and licked at his wound. Dozens of tiny medical nanites rushed into the wound in an attempt to repair the damage. He had a small colony in what would have been a back molar, separate from his main colony in his midsection, the one that the hunter had cut out. Finally, he sprayed the wound closed with liquid skin before applying and wrapping a bandage around his waist to keep debris out of the wound. His next priority was for him to triage his other wounds. Normally, he could ignore the small cuts, but they weren't closing up. However, they weren't currently bleeding either. He licked at the wounds he could reach and prayed the ones he couldn't could be ignored. He then cleansed, shaved, and wrapped up the wounds that insisted on bleeding, rationing his precious sterile bandaging until it and the spray skin were gone, but he was patched up. He could heal, given time and a safe place. he hoped. However, he wasn't safe and decided that he needed to keep moving. He wasn't hungry as much as tired. He could feed hunger. He could only feel exhaustion with sleep, and time was a commodity he did not have to spare right now. 90 minutes later, he was well and truly lost, deep in the woods. His exhaustion rapidly approaching the point he could no longer will himself awake. His adrenaline was spent, his reserves long since gone, the caffeine pills from the vest no longer effective. He had no choice but to stop at a small pond, its still waters reflecting the beautiful moon perfectly. Looking into the reflection of the moon, he recalled what local animals told him in his travels about a moon princess who was responsible for the night. Her older sister is responsible for the day. Well, he certainly could not doubt the moon had worked with him tonight. It hid behind clouds when he needed darkness, and shone brightly to light his way to safety and to this pond. He then looked into the reflection of the moon and recited a prayer that animals had told him. They said it was best to look at the reflection and not directly at the moon, if he wanted the princess of the moon to hear him. O goddess of the moon, I thank you for looking over me, and I pray for your continued benevolence. Please protect me. Tears began to form in his eyes from the despair and the desperation of survival. He was at his absolute limit. Hide me away from the humans who chase me so that they may never lay harm upon me again. And with that, the last of his reserves left him, before Morpheus, the keeper of dreams, brother to death, claimed him. The blue one gasped one last utterance, the end of his prayer. Oh, help me, O Luna, to escape. He fell, face first, onto the soft, grassy ground. His paw, still drenched in his own blood, fell, his lingering paw tip just disturbing the water where the moon was reflected, his blood coloring the water and the moon red. Luna looked upon him. The toll had been paid. Unlike so many other times, for so many other creatures, this time the prayer was heard. She had in fact been following him this night, and for many nights before. She found him a curiosity, an animal no doubt, and thus it was within her right to interfere. However, he was also intelligent like a human. She knew her sister might protest what she was about to do, but so what? Equestria could use some chaos now and then, and this one would certainly do that. Too much peace, perfection, and prosperity was boring and caused stagnation. She did not see any danger in his heart. He needed a home, and that longing pulled at her heart. His prayer, his honest and heartfelt prayer to her, the loophole he had just given her, and this one night where the walls of reality were weakest, she could grant his wish. She would not be strong enough to return to her home for some moons yet, but she could bring this one home. Just this once she would think of another, and help that other for one of the few times in her existence. Princess Luna felt a bond with this poor creature she did not understand. She knew she was doing this for the right reasons. Besides, the toll had been paid, the words spoken, and the heart, what was left of it, was pure and true. It was not unheard of for an outsider, a two-legs, to be brought across. At least, that's what she'd tell her sister if the topic ever came up. End of Chapter 1.